Remember when eating out felt like something special? Let's take a quick trip back to the 1980s, to those fast food spots we grew up with and still miss today. Ready? McDonald's. In the 80s, McDonald's was like a second home for many families. The Golden Arches meant something special back then. Kids got excited just seeing them from the car window. Happy Meals came in bright boxes with toys from cartoons, and PlayPlaces were full of laughter and static electricity. Started in 1940 in California, it had already grown into a fast food giant. By the mid-1980s, there were over 7,000 locations in the U.S. alone, and even more around the world. The McDLT was a wild idea. 2 compartments, cool lettuce, hot beef, kept apart in a styrofoam box. This was also the era of Happy Meals with real toys. Remember the little transforming food robots? And every birthday party felt like a big event, with balloons, cake, and Ronald McDonald himself. The menu was growing too. Chicken McNuggets were new in the early 80s, and they quickly became a favorite. And who could forget the commercials with catchy jingles like, "You deserve a break today." God, I miss the deep-fried apple pies. Unforgettable. Kids today will never understand. Fast food in the 80s was a magical place. Burger King. This place had its own magic. Their flame-grilled Whoppers were the star, and the "Have it your way" jingle was stuck in every kid's head. It wasn't just a slogan. It really meant you could choose exactly how you wanted your burger. No pickles, extra ketchup? No problem. Founded in 1954 in Florida, it had already become one of the biggest names in fast food. By the mid-80s, there were over 4,000 locations across the U.S. The Whopper was huge, and the Kids Club came with fun toys and a paper crown that made you feel like a little king. And remember the Star Wars glasses? They gave out special cups with pictures of the characters when the movies came out. Those were collector's items for many fans. Back then, burgers were cooked one at a time on a real flame grill, not like today, where everything is cooked the same and just doesn't taste as good. Some people say they haven't gone back in years because it's simply not the same anymore. And those classic 80s ads? They were all about getting kids to pick them instead of McDonald's. And here's something a lot of people loved: the onion rings. Can you believe that a Whopper was only $1.39? Those really were the good old days. So tell us, which one was your favorite, McDonald's or Burger King? Let the battle begin. This was the decade when Wendy's truly made its mark. "Where's the beef?" wasn't just an ad, it was a cultural moment. That commercial brings back so many childhood memories. Their burgers were square, literally. That was their thing. They said it showed they didn't cut corners, and honestly, the food tasted great. Founded in 1969 in Ohio, the chain kept growing through the 80s. By the end of that decade, there were over 3,000 locations across the U.S. The salad bar was a big deal. Parents loved it, and it made the place feel a little more grown up. But let's be honest, kids were all about the Frosty after a burger and fries. And I have to say, when Wendy's had that sunroom, the world felt like a better place. Prices were reasonable too, making it a great spot for families. These days, a fast food meal probably costs at least $20. From the big classic burger to the iconic super bar, this place was a true 80s fast food paradise. And let's not forget, "Where's the beef?" wasn't just an ad, it was a cultural moment. That commercial brings back so many childhood memories. Do you remember it? Taco Bell. Long before the purple logo and modern redesign, Taco Bell in the 80s had brown tile roofs and adobe-style buildings. It wasn't as big as the burger chains yet, but it was different, and that made it exciting. The Bell Beefer, kind of like a taco and a sloppy Joe mixed together, and the Enchilada were cult classics, something new for many American families. Founded in 1962 in California, the chain kept expanding, and by the mid-80s, There were over 1,500 locations across the U.S. The food was affordable, fast, and full of flavor. The menu was small, but the ingredients were better back then. People loved the soft tacos, crunchy tacos, and those little red sauce packets everyone collected. It was all part of the fun. Remember the 39 cents, 59 cents, and 79 cents menu? Those prices were amazing. It was the kind of place where families would sit together and enjoy a fun meal. And if you were lucky, your local Taco Bell was one of those cool buildings shaped like a bell. And who could forget the pink and teal decor? It looked like Miami Vice opened a taco shop. In the 80s, the restaurant was still growing, but it had already become a favorite for people who wanted something bold and different. Hardees. Hardees was the king of breakfast in many regions, especially in the South and Midwest. Sausage biscuits, cinnamon rolls with raisins, and those big flame-grilled burgers made it a go-to spot for mornings and lunches. The inside felt more like a cozy cabin than a fast food place, with dark wood, warm colors, and the smell of fresh coffee all day long. I would love a Frisco burger right now. Founded in 1960 in North Carolina, the chain grew fast. By the mid-1980s, there were over 3,000 locations across the U.S. The food felt homemade: big fries, crunchy chicken, and those huge made-from-scratch biscuits that people still talk about today. Some say Hardees had the best breakfast in fast food. And if you were a kid in the 80s, you probably remember the toys: California raisins, Thundercats, even little VHS tapes. It was always exciting to see what surprise you'd get. Eating out back then felt like a real treat. Hardees might not be as big now, but in the 80s, it was the place for families who wanted tasty food that felt real. Arbys. You always knew when you were near one. That big red cowboy hat sign lit up the sky. In the 80s, they served roast beef sandwiches wrapped in foil, potato cakes that stayed warm, and a sauce lineup that included the mysterious horsey sauce. Back then, it was all about the roast beef. It wasn't like other burger places. The sandwiches had thin slices of meat on soft sesame buns, and the curly fries were unforgettable. Founded in 1964 in Ohio, the chain kept growing. By the mid-1980s, there were over 1,800 locations across the U.S. What made it stand out was the flavor and the choices. Some liked the sweet Arbys sauce, others went for the spicy horsey sauce. And we can't forget the potato cakes, crispy and golden, a favorite for many. The restaurants looked different too. With wooden beams and cozy booths, it felt warm inside. You'd sit down, dip your fries, and enjoy the moment. Lots of people still remember the 5 for $5 deal, 5 sandwiches for just $5. Great value back then. Some say it doesn't feel the same today. The food, the atmosphere, even the service has changed. It's still around. But in the 80s, this place had two things that really stood out: a special charm and those dearly missed potato cakes. Before Taco Bell took over, there was Zantigo, the Mexican fast food spot that many still say was even better. It didn't stick around for long, but wow, did it leave a lasting impression. The food was bold, cheesy, and full of flavor, and the star of the menu, the chilito, warm, spicy, and rolled up just right. If you know, you know. Zantigo had its own special feel. The restaurants were cozy with warm colors, tiled counters, and the smell of melted cheese and spices in the air. Founded in the 1960s in Minnesota, it became a local favorite across the Midwest. By the early 80s, there were more than 80 locations. The menu was simple but delicious: tacos, enchiladas, burritos, and of course, the unforgettable chilito. People still talk about it today. In 1986, Taco Bell bought the chain and slowly turned most of the locations into their own. When that happened, a lot of fans felt like something truly special had disappeared. But the memory never faded. And in the 2000s, Zantigo made a quiet comeback. Just a few restaurants in Minnesota still serving that same chilito, bringing the magic back for anyone lucky enough to find one. If you ever ate there, you know how special it was. So tell us, what's your best Zantigo memory? If you grew up in the 80s, there's a good chance you remember Wags, the diner-style restaurant owned by Walgreens. Imagine grabbing a milkshake right after picking up shampoo. Wags was part diner, part Walgreens, and all nostalgia. They served full breakfasts, burgers, sandwiches, and desserts in a setting that looked like a classic diner. Booth seating, checkered floors, and servers in uniforms. It was clean, affordable, and just comforting. Dinner for under $5.50. Those were the days. Wags started in the late 1970s, and by the mid-80s, there were over 90 locations, mostly attached to Walgreens stores or nearby. It was like getting 2 stops done in one. Grab your medicine, then sit down for a bite. Sadly, by the late 80s, Walgreens sold Wags to Marriott, and not long after, the chain disappeared. But the memories still live on, especially the patty melt and the famous pancakes. Garrys was a fun little burger place that many families in the Midwest still remember with a smile. It was small but mighty. It looked and felt like a smaller version of McDonald's, and that's no coincidence. Garrys was started by former McDonald's employees who wanted to bring that same kind of magic to local towns. You could even say it felt like McDonald's cousin. This fast food chain with drive-through and walk-up service was popular from the 1960s through the 1990s. It began in 1962 in Illinois, and at its peak, there were over 70 locations across Illinois and Wisconsin. The food was simple and tasty, affordable burgers, crispy fries, milkshakes, and breakfast items. And that red, white, and blue sign, totally unforgettable. It was the kind of place you'd visit after school or with your family on the weekend. And the best part? It didn't cost much, so everyone could enjoy a good meal without breaking the bank. For kids growing up in Illinois and Wisconsin, Geri's was just part of everyday life. Most locations closed by the early 90s, but if you ever ate there, you probably still remember how good it was and how happy it made you feel. Now this was something different. Kenny Rogers Roasters wasn't your typical fast food place. It felt more like a cozy restaurant where families could sit down and enjoy a warm, home-style meal. And yes, it was founded by the Kenny Rogers, the country music legend himself. The chain started in 1991 in Florida, a little after our main 80s focus, but its spirit and style totally matched the vibe of that era. At its peak, there were over 350 locations worldwide, with the U.S. leading the way. What made it stand out? The chicken. It was slow-roasted, juicy, and full of flavor, not fried like most places. The chain faded in the U.S. by the early 2000s, but in some places around the world, especially in Asia, it's still going strong. But for many American families, Kenny Rogers Roasters brings back sweet memories of childhood. Did your family ever go there? Let us know what you remember. And before you go to our next video, tell me, if you could bring back one restaurant from back in the day, which one would it be?